Good afternoon. Welcome by the Dynamics Mobility session. Thank you for all being here. I think the rest of the people are waiting in line for a Surface, so there might be some people coming in. My name is Kees Hertog. I'm a director of product marketing, product management inside the Dynamics Business Group. The objective of today's session is to give you some visibility on where we're going with Dynamics on mobility. What is our mobile strategy? And we're focusing here on the enterprise. For us, that's CRM and AX. So we're not talking about the individual roadmap of the product, but we'll give you more visibility and predictability on where we're heading. And I'll tell you why we're heading there. What choices are we making? Secondly, we're going to see some very cool demos. Eric, my colleague Eric here, is going to be on stage and will show you some of the latest innovations around mobility from Dynamics. Lastly, we're also going to learn from partners. We have two of our trusted partners here, Sonoma Partners and To Increase. Both are early movers in the mobility space. And they're going to share their experiences with you, their learnings, also for you as a partner to take advantage of. And I'll close out with some pointers for you, some new resources that you can use to get started in mobility around Dynamics. So that's my title. So when we look at mobility, it's kind of a big thing, mobility. 80%, already today, 80% of all professional workers are off-premise now and then. And expect already some kind of access or be continuous access to their business processes. And I don't think that's going to get less. And this is all about user expectation. I just came back from a vacation in Italy, and my kids were very disappointed that I couldn't watch their Netflix movies while they were on holiday. They completely expect to pick up a tablet and watch a movie. They didn't know that Dad didn't want to, pay for the data plan in Italy to enable that, but if I look at my own kids and look at your own kids or people around you, the expectation people have, the new workforce around mobility is pretty, compared to when I grew up, it's pretty stagnating. Bring your own device is going mainstream. And what does it mean? According to a recent Forrester study, the intent, and they did a survey around enterprise customers, 63% of the current CIOs have a bring your own device plan. The expectation is by 2017, more than 900 million tablets will be used for private and business use. More than 900 million tablets that will be used both for private as well as business. Of course, if you then look in the head of the CIO, it's going to give him a major headache. Losing tablets, getting data security, but also for them a major opportunity to be successful. So if you look at the CIO priorities and if you engage with your customers and with your CIOs, mobility is in the top 3 of their priorities. In the next 2 years, the expectation is that from a CIO or from an inside the organization, the number of mobile projects for both phones and tablets will outpace the number of projects for normal desktops by a factor of 4. So if you engage with your own customers, you'll see that mobility, both tablets and phone, is drastically increasing. So now translate that to Dynamics and enterprise application. What does it mean for us? As people ask us, what is your mobile strategy? And if you look at the evolution of enterprise applications, going from mainframe and minis, we went to a client-server age. And a lot of our customers still have a client-server type of implementation of their business application, either ERP or CRM. And what they've done is basically implemented separate mobile frameworks to go mobile. However, we're embarking on the client cloud age, or devices and service age, or the cloud computing age, whatever you want to call it, cloud services and smart mobile devices. That's an architectural shift. We're focusing on, in Dynamics, with our mobile strategy, on the later. Don't expect separate mobile frameworks. We have great solutions in our ecosystem that can serve that need today. The examples you're going to see from us today and the next 18 to 24 months will be completely focused on the client cloud age. So what's different in this new age? There's some key differences in the client cloud age. First of all, a move from occasionally online to occasionally offline. Even the flight over here from Seattle, I'm online. And that has a drastic change in your architecture, for your architecture. The same around net latency and the quality of the networks. A few years ago, I wouldn't have said that, but even my beach vacation in Italy, I had a good internet connection that was pretty reliable and pretty high bandwidth. The user interaction, coming from a situation where you had devices that had a keyboard and maybe a pen still, to completely touch first, from an experience perspective. And from a device perspective, what I said earlier around bring your own devices. It used to be that you got your device from IT, maybe your BlackBerry. If you talk to an average Gartner consultant, ask his phone is a BlackBerry. They are forced by Gartner to use BlackBerries. They hate it, but they're forced to use it. We're going to a situation that more and more of the devices, and I said close to more than 700 million tablets alone in 2017, will be bring your own device. You can choose your tablet, your phone, and you just hook up to a corporate resource. And earlier this week in Satya's keynote, Julie did a great job of showing how we incorporate bring your own device scenarios in Windows RT and in our Windows Surface RT tablets. And the management of these applications and these mobile applications in the client-server age are often separate management tools. In the client cloud age, you have a cloud service. For example, Intune. Beautiful cloud service that is available to directly manage your devices, either an Apple device or a Microsoft device or a Google device. And importantly, also from the application experience perspective, we came from a situation where you have very task-based, very focused applications on your mobile device to do one specific task. In the cloud age, we are, as application designers, we have this beautiful internet, and we can mash up information, not just from your back office application, from your CRM application or your ERP application, but you could tap into all kind of big data sources, to weather patterns, to all kind of analytical information, to some kind of Hadoop feeds, so big data feeds. Or use the power of the smart mobile device. Use the camera, use the location services, use the NFC tagging. So these application experiences will become a lot richer. So in the client cloud age, we have a very powerful back office service, both either structured or unstructured, and the smart mobile devices give us a new canvas to build new type of applications. As I said earlier, our application focus, our mobile strategy focus is on the later. So what are the scenarios that we're focusing on? To give you a kind of a high-level overview on what are some of the key scenarios we're focusing on in Dynamics. And again, this is across Dynamics AX and Dynamics CRM. First of all, anywhere browser access. You expect to take a browser, a Microsoft browser or Firefox or an Apple browser, and just connect to your cloud service. We have some great examples in CRM and the CRM cloud service. You can take any mobile browser and connect it and get access to your CRM service. The more and more we move AX into a cloud service, you'll get that same type of scenarios. And that's just the basis. Then there are 3 application scenarios which we will focus on as Dynamics. First of all, decision making. BI. Currently, there's something called the Business Analyzer into the Windows Store. In the Windows 8 Store, there's an application called Business Analyzer. That's a starting point. Expect for us in the next 18 to 24 months to keep advancing our mobile BI technology. And if you look at the demo of Amir Netz and Power BI, and he showed a very small element of the mobile capabilities of Power BI, you'll see that Microsoft in general will get a lot more mobile BI technology out there. And as Dynamics, we're kind of a first-class citizen. We feel like a kid in a candy store in utilizing this mobile BI technology. The second application category here is what I call productivity workspaces. These are these apps of these workspaces that a professional needs to get stuff done. Think about a sales associate in a store. If you go to the Microsoft Store, for example, they have tablets, and they have a clienteling application, a POS or a clienteling application. That's a mobile workspace. On NRF in January here in New York, we announced our mobile clienteling application, both on the tablet as well as the phone. We got so much response out of this that a company called Delta Airlines decided to use that application for all their in-flight POS needs. So if you buy something in a Delta airplane, it will be done by our mobile application. But we're also going to see an example in a minute here from Eric around the CRM workspace and something that's coming out with Orion. You see a productivity app, something, I'm a seller, I have this sales workspace, a CRM workspace, and I need to basically move prospects in the pipeline and close deals. That's a workspace. What's important in these workspaces is that they're tightly coupled to the back office business processes. If I make a change in my sales process, how I close leads or what type of sales processes I see, that needs to be automatically rendered on my client. And Eric will give you an example here. The last application category is self-service apps. We'll show you some examples of self-service apps, simple task-based apps to get a certain administrative task done. Managing your expenses, approve something, capture some time. Those are simple apps, task-based apps that any worker and a lot of people in your organization will utilize. And the last category here, and maybe it's last or probably the most important one for you guys, is build your own app. What you'll see is a continuous investment across AX and CRM in APIs and RESTful APIs, so it becomes a lot easier for mobile developers to consume our APIs, and in documentation. So customers and partners can build their own applications more quickly and more comprehensively. And we're going to see some examples also today of two partners that are actually actively utilizing these APIs. So when we built these three apps, so around decision-making, workspaces, and self-service apps, how do we differentiate? What is our philosophy? What our design philosophy for these apps? We want to make sure these apps are personal. They understand my need. They know where I'm at. They use the location services, for example, of my device. They're social, meaning I can easily get help from my network. For example, you'll see we have Link embedded and integrated. It's easier for me before I approve something to collaborate or connect with somebody over Link. And of course, they provide a beautiful and immersive experience. So with that, I want to actually take a look at a few examples on these and help me welcome stage Eric Buchart, who's going to show some of these experiences on this Surface Pro device. Eric.
Thank you, Kees. So let me just bring this baby up real quick. So appreciate you being here. Excited to show you some of these great capabilities that we have in our product. So Kees had talked about this notion of workspace productivity. So first example I'm going to show you is our CRM mobile application. This is the application that is coming out with our Orion release later this fall. So based on our Orion technology, we have this client application that is going to bring experiences to mobile users. So again, this is a workspace app. This is about delivering that killer business app to do, in this particular case, the task of winning and closing deals. This is geared around a salesperson. So like Case had mentioned, in the retail stores, they're doing POS transactions. I'm a salesperson. I need access to what I need to close my deals. So you'll see right off the bat in my dashboard here, I have my activities, my opportunities, my leads, my active accounts, all the data that I need to perform this function of closing deals. We've even introduced visualizations. So as you see here, by clicking in to this visualization, we now render this data similar to how we do in CRM, similar to that experience our salespeople are used to come in and navigate and filter down these data sets by clicking in this chart and seeing different representations of the data. So in this case, I'm going to open up one of my opportunities. Now, this contextual nature of bringing the data to me that's important, again, in closing a particular deal. I have my account. I can pin information such as activities, products. All of my data is right here on this screen as it relates to this particular opportunity. I have my estimated close date, all my details about the opportunity. I can see I have a couple activities to perform. I can see I have some tasks within my process. One of the new capabilities we're introducing in CRM is this notion of a process. So within this process, we bring that experience, but in a mobile device rendering here. I can see the process across the top. I'm sitting in the second stage of this process, which is develop. And I now, through this particular design, optimized for touch and optimized for my mobile experience, I can come in here and simply tap on that and complete that task to identify my competitors, progress that stage. You'll see at the top I've now moved out of the propose or out of the develop stage into the proposed stage for this deal. So providing the capabilities that the salesperson needs to do their job within the mobile device. So I'm going to close that mobile experience and bring up CRM for a second. So really in this mobile workspace, what we need to do is provide that capability to really configure within CRM and bring that experience to our end users. So what I'm going to do is within CRM, I'm going to navigate to that particular opportunity that we were just looking at and really illustrate now the power of this experience. So I have CRM, I have my CRM customizers, they're able to configure the application. As I make changes in CRM, I don't need to then bring in my mobile developer to change the mobile app. We're going to be able to make these changes in CRM and push them to this mobile device. So to illustrate that, let me come back here into this, and I'm going to simply make a quick change to this sales process you see across the top. So if for this instance you'll see here in this proposed stage, present proposal. Right now not a required field. Real simple change that I'm going to make in CRM to edit this process. Brings up our nice new form or our process designer. You can see this process spans multiple entities, so I'm going to look specifically within this opportunity entity and simply set that one field there as required. So simple change on the CRM side. So this is one element of the change that I can do. So I've changed the process. I could add fields, I could add custom entities, etc. And that is going to propagate through directly to that mobile experience. So I've made that change. So in that first screen that you saw on the mobile client, I had 6 tiles of data: activities, opportunities, accounts, and the chart, etc. We also have given you tools to configure that. To do so, it is done in CRM through a dashboard. So I have this dashboard that is going to present the layout of that particular mobile client. So I can come here and simply define what are the 6 elements that I want to be on that landing page of that mobile device. These are all the ones you see out of the box. I have my activities upper left, opportunities, leads, active accounts, my sales pipeline chart. But off to the bottom right, I already went ahead and added a custom entity in CRM called events. Not an out-of-the-box entity. I created events. I added the fields, process, etc. And I came here and I said, hey, pull that onto my mobile client. So I've made that change as well. So I've made a change to the dashboard to surface this custom entity events, and I've made a change to that process. So now, let's bring the mobile client back up. So one of the first things you'll notice here is, look, right there is our setting. CRM has changed. I'm going to re-pull down all of those configurations and customizations to enrich this client experience to surface that new change or those new experiences. So again, driving that capability to deliver the experience within the CRM and in the user. So you'll see as we come here into this next stage, that identify proposal field now has a red asterisk. It is required. The other thing I had talked about is if we come here, I have the means of, I guess, navigating here within my system. In my case, I'm going to come back to my dashboard. I added that field. That is propagated over to my device. I also have my custom events off to the right. One of the unique capabilities of our mobile client is this ability to create client-side scripts within CRM, but deliver those to the mobile device. So as a user is working in CRM, those client scripts are actually firing directly on this mobile device experience. To illustrate this, within my custom entity, as I select a value here of bike, you'll notice just like that, client-side script actually fired on this device to say, you know what, that's a required, based on that selection, I need to make the bike type a required field. So really delivering richness in customizing CRM and presenting it to that end user in that mobile device without changing it every time. So that's an example of this productivity workspace. I'm going to now show you two examples of task-based experiences. So as a particular user, I think everybody in this room can resonate with this. We need to submit expenses, right? You have lots of receipts, you have expenses. Well, I don't need my whole CRM system. I don't need accounts, opportunities. I need a couple things. I need to capture receipts, post, submit, and review my report. So you'll see I have a number of reports in process here. I can see the expense reports that are currently open. I can look at any of my unreconciled expenses. This has now reached out to Amex, pulled down all those transactions. Also has some receipts that I captured on the fly so I wouldn't forget. But I'm going to come here, I'm going to open up a particular expense report. Already broken down. I've been categorizing these expenses. Those of you that have ever entered in a hotel, you probably have to break it out into all the line item details and sell everything. So here you go. Capture your data, come in here. You know what, in this particular case, I'm going to add a receipt. Simply take a picture. There's a nice little, how about that? There you go. So capturing a receipt on the fly. I have my receipt. I can now take that and add that to this particular report. Submit that. I got my receipt. I got my data. Task-based, doing what I need to do, get in, get out. And lastly, it's come back here, submit that report, get a nice breakdown of what's happening. So this isn't my entire AX system. This is just a specific task, workflow-driven based contextual experience within the app. So that's experience around expenses and expense submission. The last I want to show is, as a salesperson, I would do those expenses. I would do timesheets. But as a sales manager, different tasks. I now have a approval-based experience for me as a sales manager. I can come in here and I can see all the expense reports that have been submitted. Let's take a look at Trisha's here. So the summary view, there's all of her expenses, there's all of her receipts, a little breakdown. But we've also brought in the ability to collaborate with this user through presence, through instant messaging, the ability to contact and maintain. But again, contextual based on this particular task that I'm working. I also have the ability to look at her timesheet. I can see now, again, contextually the data that's different as it relates to projects now. What's her utilization look like? She's a biller, 143%. Again, I can contact her. I can see her time summary, what she's been billing to. I can look at the data and see the breakdowns of all that and the project impact and how this all affects this organization as I then come back and simply approve this time report. So two examples of how the CRM application can illustrate a productivity workspace, bringing the experience to a mobile device, and two task-based apps around the salesperson submitting expenses and the manager actually approving those. So with that, turn it back to you, Case.
Thank you, Eric. I think great examples here, as Eric said, around the work people ask us always, I have a is it only Windows? Our default philosophy, since we're part of Microsoft, and we're all Microsoft shareholders, first and best on Windows. But we will look per scenario, we'll look in supporting other operating systems. For example, the CRM workspace will also support iOS on the iPad, this funky tablet that the Fruity company sells. And for example, on the expense side, we have a phone app, a companion app on the phone that goes with the expense where we use the camera to capture receipts. We will support on that app, we'll support, of course, Windows Phone, but iOS and Android. So per app, we'll be looking at which OSs, client OSs we'll support. For the more techies under you, people say, yeah, it's a lot of cost supporting all these different client OSs, and you will also be faced with those decisions. For the apps you just saw in the Taskbase app, we're standardizing an HTML5 with ASP.NET for business logic. That helps us with the most reuse if we have to build an iOS or an Android version of it. So inside of Microsoft, from a skilling, and we have some discussions on it later, but because OSs support different, you can use XAML or other type of development languages. We've decided to standardize an HTML5 and ASP.NET for these applications. However, we also want to learn from partners, and as I said, early move partners that have gained these experiences, been on the forefront of mobile development, specifically for Dynamics. And I want to invite our first partner on stage, Mike Snyder from Sonoma Partners. Mike, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Yep, thanks for having me. We're going to be opposite here, like on the wall here.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird setup, these big devices, but or the big stages. So for the audience here, help us to learn Sonoma Partners. Give us a short introduction of your organization.
Sure. So Sonoma Partners, we are a CRM consulting shop. We've been working with Dynamics CRM for just over about 10 years and helping companies do integration, migration, customization, all sorts of stuff.
And maybe some customers that people might be familiar with?
Some of our bigger customers are Aon Insurance, Jones Lang LaSalle, SanDisk Manufacturing.
And something in beers as well?
Yes, New Belgium.
New Belgium breweries.
Yep.
One of my favorite beer brewers here in the U.S. But also maybe, because as I said, you're one of the early movers into mobile and looking at mobility. How did you stumble into this?
Right, so like I said, we've been doing CRM for a long time and basically helping people within the web browser customize stuff and doing lots of coding. And when Windows 8 came out about 18 months ago, we got really excited about the potential of how we could develop on it ourselves without having to learn iOS and things like that. So we thought of a customer, this New Belgium brewery, and basically they have people going out in the field and working with customers. We thought this would be a really great mobile scenario. So we basically approached them, pitched an idea about building a Windows 8 mobile app that they could bring to their field, and put together some mock-ups of how it might work, how it could look, and put it in front of them and put it in front of their users, and the excitement was just like immediate. Yeah,
they have one of the roles. I'm still having my career plan. I think it was called the Beer Ranger.
Beer Ranger, yes.
What is the role of a Beer Ranger?
So the Beer Ranger goes out to places that are serving New Belgium beer. So this would be like
the bars.
Bars,
yeah.
But also liquor stores, things like that. And they have to make sure that the quality is good.
So they have to test it?
They have to test it. That's definitely part of it, yeah.
Amazing job.
So that was basically the use cases were around building a mobile app to help the Beer Rangers plan their time, using the mapping capabilities. When they went there was like 2 or 3 key things they had to do. So we put in some checklists to make sure they got done quickly and easily. In the past, they were trying to do this with some other type of mobile solutions and like having mobile browsing. It was not optimized at all for them, and so they really loved this idea. And that's how we got started down the mobile path.
So the excitement of the customer, and then you saw that opportunity and building that experience for that super job called a Beer Ranger.
Correct.
Exactly. So maybe you can share some of your more recent, because this has been about a year or a bit longer ago, more your recent.
Yeah, the New Belgium has been out for a while, and then as we saw the success of that, and we saw one of the main things we saw was just how it impacted the end user adoption. So again, they've had CRM for a while. They've always kind of had the management's had to push it onto the salespeople into the field. And this mobile app totally flipped that equation around. So they had people in the field that wanted it, wanted to have it deployed, wanted to use it more, and that really, got the customer excited about how they could use this app, right?
Yeah.
And so we thought this is great, not just for New Belgium, but any other customer that has people out in the field. We should go out and talk to them about these things, right? So we really started building a practice around field enabling and mobile scenarios for.
So as a system integrator, you added a practice for mobility.
Correct. Yeah. So and it's been an interesting kind of transition for us as we've gone through it. So again, our background is mostly coding and configuring and customization, and doing the mobile apps has been a totally different experience for us. We've had to bring in new resources into the organization. So we've hired UX designers, we've hired graphic designers. These are people in the past that we've never needed because our job was to make it look like the rest of CRM, and now we're building these. The examples Eric just showed are great graphics, great visuals. That's what people are expecting to see, and you can't just have a developer whip that stuff out.
Okay. And maybe you can share some of the examples from recent customers. You get that.
Yeah, and related to the new types of skills, we had to actually build out new types of processes internally as well. So taking the user experience is really the key thing that drives all this. So we go out, we follow people in the field, what we call ride-alongs, actually watch them do their job instead of asking them what they want, see what they do and try to translate that into requirements. You would think that would happen on regular CRM ones, but for some reason, IT frequently tells people this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But the mobile one is really designed for the end user, so it's a chance for us to really take advantage of that and incorporate that into the process. Then we're doing things like these low-fidelity wireframes, high-fidelity wireframes. Again, these are things that were not done typically in CRM implementations, using UX designers, graphic designers, and then, of course, getting into the high-fidelity wireframes and mock-ups and things like that. So it's been pretty interesting. We've had to develop a totally separate process for these types of projects. And then, just some examples I wanted to show. So this is something we built for, it's actually in the Windows Store. It's called EasyOp, but it's a way for, you can hook it up to Dynamics, and you can, visualize your opportunities. You can touch, move them around. You can resize that circle in there represents the dollar value of the opportunity, so you can resize it and make the values change. Then you can drill into the opportunity details. And again, we tried to really stick with the Windows 8 styling. I thought it was pretty interesting at the keynote. They mentioned this new UX competency from Microsoft partners. So that was pretty interesting. So we spent a lot of time internally learning how to make things look Windows 8 style. Yeah. I used to call it Metro, but now I learned my lesson. So this is a good example of one we built. This is another example we built for people that have, again, salespeople out in the field, taking advantage of the mapping capabilities. The records that are being displayed here are all from the back-end CRM system. This next guy here, this is for a company that is a eye contact lens distributor. So people going out in the field, visiting the different points of sale. This one I think is really interesting because it touches some of the things you mentioned earlier, which is occasionally offline. So they have people out in the field, and for the most part they have cell coverage, but there are areas where they don't. Yeah. So we had to build in some capabilities to help them where they did not have coverage, right? This is also interesting, I think, because it brings in data from the back-end financial systems. So when they're out visiting customers, they can see status of payments, overdue invoices, credit limits, things like that.
So really optimized for that person that visits all the retail locations.
Correct, right.
And it's kind of a weird-looking device. What is the...
I won't mention his name here.
Yeah, the iPad.
But that has actually been, for us, if you guys are thinking about doing this, that's been a big learning, which was when we started this, we got excited about Windows 8 because it's really easy for our developers to do that. They know the Microsoft technology inside and out, but the reality is a lot of customers have iOS devices, so we've had to learn some of that, and it's quite different. So I remember when we first bought a Mac, we put it in our network, and we're like, how do we hook this up to the printer? Like, there's a lot of stuff we had to work through. Yeah. But that's what gets us excited about, again, going back to Windows 8, our guys can build things in, days versus, weeks or months and things in the iOS world. So okay. I think we got one more example here, too. Yes, this is for a similar idea, which is basically a medical device or medical equipment manufacturer. They go out, visit accounts. They've got a calendar. When they go there, there's 2 or 3 key scenarios they're trying to take care of. And we've got some of the on the right-hand side there, some of the key stats and metrics that people are trying to keep track of. So, and it's been interesting as we've been doing this for the past 18 months, learning what works, what doesn't work, some of the UI controls that we've built. We're able to, if it works really well for one client, we can take it and leverage it in the future. And I think the other key thing we've learned is really just kind of all these mobile apps, we're not trying to rebuild the entire CRM system on the device, right? It's like, what are the 2 or 3 key use cases that those people have, and how can we make it as simple and easy as them to use?
Mike, maybe also because we're all here together as business partners, as a system integrator, what do you see? How do you look at the opportunity for mobile, and how do you validate your own investments as a system integrator to, like you said, you have to invest in new skills, new type of resources?
Right. Yeah, so that's really been an important point of difference for us when we're out going and talking to customers, that we believe very strongly what you said earlier, which is basically any successful CRM deployment is going to have some component of mobile in it, right? And Microsoft's got good offerings, as Eric showed, but sometimes people want something different, and so they want to have make sure that we have the capabilities to do that, right? So it's helped us win projects we might not have won before, and then also for the projects we do have, it's really helped with the end user adoption. Instead of, again, management pushing down CRM onto people, if you have users calling up IT asking for stuff, that freaks them out, and they like that.
Yeah.
So it's really helped with the end user adoption. And again, and then for us, that means if they like the system, people are using it, that means they're going to have a phase 2, there's going to be a phase 3, there's going to be upgrade work, so that really helps our services business as well.
So really getting CRM adopted inside the organization, get it virally adopted, and that in itself will get you additional revenue and new projects for you.
Yeah. And having a really successful mobile app really increases the likelihood of a successful CRM deployment.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent. So just for you as a system integrator, if you look at the audience here and your colleague partners, what are some of the key learnings that you had as Sonoma being one of the early movers for you?
I think some of the things I touched on, just about having that end user driven requirements was really important. Again, that's something that didn't always happen when we were doing regular CRM deployments, but actually following people in the field and watching what people do instead of listening to what they tell you they are doing, right? Because those are not always the same thing. Having the different types of resources on staff, that was really important for us. Those are big investments. When we first hired them, we kind of did it on the come, knowing we win work, but then we won work. So there's kind of that chicken and egg thing.
Yeah.
But we feel really bullish about the future of mobile and where Microsoft's going. So that was a pretty safe bet for us. And then again, I think the key thing is also just it really helps the overall CRM deployment. Again, these projects are not very big projects. I mean, they're probably all less than $100,000. And the main projects are hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but they really do help drive the overall success, which then leads into more services for us. So.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing your experience with us here, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
With a small handoff on mics. I wanted to share a different experience with you and one of our partners, one of our, again, early movers here as an ISV named To Increase. And I want to ask if Björn Kuip can join me here and share the experiences as To Increase and how they've approached the opportunity in mobile.
Thanks, Kees.
Welcome, Björn. I like your outfit. Looks pretty sharp.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Don't look back yourself either.
Yeah. So maybe you can, as an ISV, you can, because we just talked about an SI. How do you look at the opportunity? And I think you had some very specific examples because you have some very focused verticals as To Increase. So maybe kind of short on To Increase what your focused verticals were and kind of how did you enter into product engineering and what did you uncover there?
Yeah. I think as an ISV, we always search for the right verticals to be in by understanding our competence, which is really all about understanding the domain of the verticals we're after. We've been doing that in a number of areas where I think most predominantly we were strong in the manufacturing space, and then particularly in the manufacturing space on the discrete side. And as we looked at the business for the discrete manufacturer, I think one thing that popped up in our continuous engagement with these customers is that let's say the role of a product engineer is very pivotal about the success of developing new products and bringing them to market in the manufacturing process as such. So, as a first wave of applications, we really thought we need to take that vertical capability into a product engineer role and provide an application for that specific persona as such.
Yeah. So when your product engineering was your first, and maybe you can walk us through kind of what you uncovered and how did you go about developing that specific product itself.
Yeah, let's go and do that. I think first of all, the first thing we did was trying to really understand what a customer scenario is all about when you talk about a product engineer. I think Mike captured it very well. I think the first thing we really need to do is to understand what does a product engineer actually do in his daily job. Where does he start? Where does he stop? What are the typical daily tasks he works with? And how at the end of the day does he drive a number of decisions in his process? I think what you managed to say about how to think about a mobile application and the part that you talk about decision making, that's really vital, because that's at the end of the day what people need to do, right? Yep. So, and then if you project that on a product engineering role, then that basically means that a product engineer actually approves or initiates change or innovates something completely new that needs to be, obviously approved and recited and so forth. And then in that process itself, what you want to do in order to facilitate, let's say, that uncovery and that change management process and that innovative process, you want those people to really have access to all, let's say, all sets of product information. Typically in our AX way of thinking, we think like, oh, you need to know about production orders, what is the cost price of that equipment, what are our suppliers that can actually handle these kinds of changes, and you kind of automatically have a limit about what the EP data set can offer you. Now, if you switch it around, thinking about a mobile application, all of a sudden, like you mentioned earlier today about big data and using all kinds of data sets to actually make a better informed decision, that's what you can do when you develop these types of apps. And I think looking at, let's say, like details like, for example, how many complaints were in my other system, or what is the circumstance on the shop floor in all the pictures that somebody has taken of that machine or that product that is installed over there. What's the weather circumstance, and what other information can be pulled into that particular app for that engineer to make the right type of decision. Now, that really brings it down to a number of things, because at the end of the day, reviewing that information that you gather and collect as you proceed is actually really task driven, because at the end of the day, as Eric also showed, it's a task that you want to take care of, that you want to approve, you want to reject it, you want to maybe, move it to someone else, as it's maybe, something that you want to do in a multidisciplinary type of environment. But it's a task-driven environment that you ultimately want to integrate back to like an AX backend or an NAV backend or a CRM backend. That integrated aspect at the end of the day is, from the way how we looked at it, very important, because you still want to have that rich capability of BI on the lower levels as well, or let's say for an executive team to understand all that information.
Yeah. So maybe you can walk us through kind of how you approach the design itself, and maybe also show an example of the app.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to take you through for a moment about why did we build this app in the way that we've done it. I mean, first of all, we started to understand what is really relevant from a data perspective, as you can see on the left-hand side, for a product engineering app. And then you figure out, like, engineers, they like to see the pictures of the scenario. They like to understand graphically what's going on. They need to, for example, understand the design, the computer-aided design, or any other documentation that's going on around that product. And then, they also like to know what are location and geographical elements of the machine where it's installed. Specifically, when you think about one of our customers, that actually has large machinery around the world installed at very harsh environments, like in oil and gas platforms in, let's say, the North Sea or in Arctic environments and so forth. It's rather obvious that these weather circumstances play a crucial role in the behavior of that type of equipment. So we try to capture all that rich data in the application, and then we drive that to a decision-making process. Then the second thing that, let's say, when you think about these apps, that is very relevant for us in the way how we are approaching our mobile development efforts, on the Windows 8 devices, is the scale as such, right? I think, once we started to certify the app and put the Windows app in the store, it's just so fantastically easy to bring that app to a user. You can all go out there and just download it, and it's on your device in a matter of like seconds, really. And then, once you connect it very well, you're right there. You can go and it's there. It just works. And coming from an ERP background, we know very different scenarios about deployment. And that's really exciting. And then I think from an engineering perspective, looking at that role of a product engineer, from our perspective as part of our product offering for manufacturing, we see, let's say, the capability of a process approach of having, let's say, an app that is able to record for anybody at any given time engineering details, engineering change requests as such, is a vital thing to drive innovation for our customers. And that basically comes back to the integration bit I showed earlier. We get those ECRs out of the app into the, in this case, AX2012 backend, and from there onwards, the engineering team can take all that information and make educated decisions with regards to what they want to change or what they want to invest in to innovate and change as such. So that AX2012 data set actually gets pulled in from the application. Lastly, I think, and probably most relevant, is the fact that you are building these kinds of apps, and that's what we really try to it's still an ongoing journey for us as well, is to really try to position yourself in the user. What is that person really going to do? How do we tailor it around him? What are the crucial BI components and KPIs that particular product engineer wants to see in that app? So really understanding, and I think what Mike also, I can just only follow that thread of thinking, is that you need to sit next to that person, understand the role and the context of that role to drive a high-value app as such. So, that was just to set the stage. Maybe we can take a look here.
I'll help you log in. Oh,
I hope you didn't
I don't know my own password. Oh.
So, as you can see on the main screen here already, the application was already installed, but automatically, as soon as you go into the Windows Store, search for product engineering, you'll find this app, and it installs literally in a minute. After you do that, you can actually click on the tile itself, and you get into the main menu. And we've started to, let's say, create the user interface about the engineering change aspect here. And as you see here, this data actually can be loaded directly back into AX2012. But what you see here is, let's say, the number of engineering change requests that I have encountered myself on my journeys as an engineer, as a field engineer in the field. I've been able, for example, to take these pictures here of this particular windmill that had a number of issues on the wheels there, as you can see on the turbine. I made a picture of that. I can enter a lot of information here in this text. There's a bunch of fields I can add to that. And I think one of the things that we've encountered in the collaboration we did with the Microsoft development team that guided us a little bit into how to make these apps is that you can make a lot of use in developing these Windows 8 apps with additional capabilities, like, for example, these charms here that you can just, get open up, and they just appear, and you can then use, let's say, the power of these things here. Like, for example, one of the things that an engineer really wants to do is validate with his other engineers, like, hey, guys, have you seen this before? Is this something that you've encountered before? Provide me with some feedback how you've handled that. So in order to do that, he can just go there, share, and all of a sudden you can share this engineering change request via email. I can just say, I want to send it to one of my colleagues here. I want to send this to, let's say, in this particular case, from Case's machine to my own email address. I can just say, send that email there, and I can send straight away from our app. I can just collaborate immediately with, in this case, with a colleague. Or, we are now piloting. I, didn't manage to get it into the current release that we have in the store, but just as easy, you can imagine that you just post this on Yammer, right? So these kinds of charms and these kinds of APIs that are provided in developing these apps make it relatively easy to uptake all kinds of things that allow you also to push things into a social type of enterprise collaboration as such, that Case also talked about earlier. Now, if I would, let's say, want to see a little bit more, and I open up on the lower level, we can actually swipe and open the bar here on the lower level. We also, at the moment that I've created this engineering change request, I can also, the system automatically, knows where I am. I allowed it to record my location and where I am at the point when I create this change request, and you can see, that I've created that here, right on this spot is where that machine is located. These are just a few small things that I wanted to show. There's a bunch of other things that we can do around this. If I make a new engineering change request, and I would just simply add a new one here, the system also would, it asks you straight off the bat one time, am I allowed to use your location? You can then, from here onwards, also automatically invoke the camera as such, allow it to use the camera, take any picture of myself here if I wanted to, and all the data gets recorded automatically into the system. And I think, this just shows a number of small, let's say, capabilities that we've, integrated and worked with with the Microsoft team to make this, let's say, a useful application. I mean, this is just the start. Obviously, we are on a journey here from a task-based scenario to move much more into a productivity platform scenario for product engineering.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing this. It's a very cool app. Thank you. So, before you go, Björn, could you share some of, because as an ISV, you just heard from a system integrator. As an ISV, you have a different business model. Yep. You set up your organization differently. Could you share some of the key learnings for you where you went through with the organization, with the people here in the room as a software publisher?
Yeah, definitely. I think once we started to think about developing mobile apps, I think the first thing you really need to start considering is like, what kind of business model sits behind developing these apps? Because I guess you all have downloaded apps on your device. I mean, for you, it's really not a new thing as such. So typically, you don't expect to buy an app and pay 20K for it, right? And nobody would actually be in his righteous mind doing that. So coming up with a model that makes sense, and scaling up to a subscription-based scenario are like, top of mind when you start developing these types of apps. So that's where it really starts before you actually start writing the first pieces of code. And I think the second thing is, what drives the value of your application? And I think that from an ISV perspective, since we need to sell this stuff, it really needs to hit hard on the value drivers for those particular roles that we are building these apps for. So people would recognize the value, they would see like, hey, that's exactly what I need, this is really making my life easier. So it needs to be very, very role specific to the person you try to pitch it to. And then I think, lastly, from an ISV perspective specifically, I think we have to really change our way of thinking, and as you know, and all of you that know us, we were actually, an NAX development ISV with a vertical practice in manufacturing, in food, and in some in construction and integration solutions. But now we're entering this era of building these applications. You have to really start rethinking the skills of the people that develop this software. I think Mike actually made a good point. You really need to start thinking about how the user experience looks like, and how people can actually work together with those users to achieve that rich, good-looking, BI-infused user interface. And that's why I think it's a very good initiative, learning from the keynote yesterday morning, where it was mentioned that Microsoft is pushing out this new competency for UX design is I think, much required to get to a point of developing these apps in a structured manner.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing this learning from us, Björn. Thank you. So with that, I kind of want to summarize the session here today. We talked about where we're going to head as Dynamics in mobile, and I talked about the client cloud age. Really, for us, it's all about services and devices, cloud services, and building these new smart apps. I told you about what are the scenarios we're looking at. Yes, everywhere browser access, and yes, not just our own browser. But also, we will go deeper in BI. We will go deeper in these workspaces, and Eric showed a beautiful workspace that's coming out for CRM. And think about retail and a clienteling app that's coming for retail as a workspace. You saw some beautiful, very immersive examples in task-based apps. And we have them, a few of them also for the phone. But of course, important for us is the continued investments in APIs. And we continue to invest release by release, both on AX and CRM, to get better APIs, make it easier for partners like Sonoma and to increase and all of you to build these beautiful new immersive applications. So for me, a call to action to you. Download these applications. The applications Eric just showed, the task-based applications, are available today on the Windows Store. They're in demo mode only, They're the real app. They're in demo mode only. They run off local cache. In September, there will be an update which connects it. You can connect automatically to AX 2012. They are great, demo for prospects and great inspiration. We've thought about concept. We thought about navigation. There's also a white paper in MSDN because we thought about security, authentication, those type of things. Don't underestimate that. Plan your mobile development practice. We heard it from both from Mike as well as Björn. It's a different skill. Cool designers. People think a lot more visual. Designers that maybe can code some HTML, that can make some prototypes. That's a new, for a lot of us in business applications and enterprise application, that's a new type of resource, new type of skill. Don't underestimate it. If you want to differentiate yourself, you need to invest in those things. And make a choice for a development platform from a language. I shared with you what we're doing. HTML5 and ASP.NET. We can go to XAML if we can't cover in HTML5. We choose the standard. And only with exceptions we might choose something else. But it helps you when you're building and because coding HTML is different than coding in C# or in X++ or any kind of back office type of development language you're used to. So we've chosen one standard. And you might see us making small changes or exceptions, but we're choosing one standard in the Netherlands. But again, make your own choice and make a very conscious choice. Don't underestimate that. And there's actually some good resources to help you kickstart development. Of course, use our APIs, both for AX as well as for CRM. And the CRM, the new API for Orion's coming out in October, it will have more input for mobile, and we actually have also a prototype or an example application you can use as a starting point to hook up to the APIs and the mobile APIs. For AX, we published an MSDN, we published a white paper and some guidance on how to connect to the APIs and how to also take care of the security. Use those resources. Also in Microsoft, we have, and not a lot of people know this, we actually have a Microsoft Application Acceleration Program funded by Windows to help you funding the development efforts for these applications. It's available in MPN. Take a look at it. There's specific rules. I'm not going to teach you all the rules here. It's available in MPN. Take a look at it. There's also a session on Wednesday that goes deeper into that program. At 4 o'clock, there's a session called the Windows Accelerate in Fiscal Year 14. It goes more into details of this program and how you can utilize this program to kickstart and maybe fund some of your development. Of course, this is not about Mike's iOS version of his app. This is about the Windows 8 version of the apps. And Tammy talked about it, the new user interface design competency that will be introduced in January of this calendar year, or next calendar year. But on MSDN, there's some very cool guidance on how to build. There's the MSDN Apps Design Center. Take a look at the Apps Design Center. There's very cool guidance because the competency is not there yet, but you need to get ready for it. And this is a great resource pool for you and for your teams to get started in building these beautiful immersive apps. So if you think about Windows and you saw cool demos of Windows 8.1, I think Windows RT, certainly in the bring your own device scenario with the Surface RT or anybody else's RT tablet, will pick up a lot more steam in the next 6 to 9 months, certainly in enterprises. We see it ourselves in Dynamics. I shared with you a small company called Delta. They're going mobile. They're looking at Microsoft to bring them mobile experiences in their planes. And we get a lot of requests in retail and FinServ and other industries around mobile. So my call to action, you use these resources, think about your practice. It could be that you say, I'm not doing it, team up with a partner, because mobile is going to increasingly take off also in enterprises, and there's some beautiful resources available for you already today to build beautiful immersive experiences. With that, I want to thank you for your attendance. Hopefully it was of use to you and get started and together with us be first in mobile. Thank you.